Let's be clear, dealing with a worldwide pandemic was not on my 2020 bingo card. Economic devastation, the stress, the confusion, and dealing with the constant craziness that has been 2020 honestly has been exhausting. In fact, life during COVID has been so exhausting that I decided to spend some time focusing on the changes in Colorado that should be kept after COVID is finally gone. Because surely maybe something good has come out of this whole thing. If you like saving money on groceries, booze, and clothes, don't forget to download the Ibotta app, a Colorado local company. I'm actually a very proud affiliate of Ibotta, and I've saved hundreds of dollars on groceries using it. Don't forget to sign up via the show notes using my affiliate link. You'll receive $10 towards your first payout when you redeem your initial savings. By the way, the first payout is $20, so that kind of speeds you along. So anyway, definitely check out Ibotta. Sign up through the show notes. Okay, so I will admit that I'm a glass half full kind of girl. However, COVID challenges even the most positive person's outlook when it comes to finding something good about the situation because there are so many aspects of it that are a hot COVID mess. However, I was surprised to find that I was able to discover a number of good things living in Colorado during COVID and some great things that have occurred because of changes that we made that helped us weather the storm. Change number one, which was a painful one, but basically the initial swift response. So it's not a change, but it's just a reaction to the overall situation. When Governor Polis closed down the ski resorts, I knew that COVID was a big freaking deal. 3 cases internationally had been traced back to Colorado ski resorts. And with the sheer number of international travelers to our state, the potential for a New York level outbreak was huge. In fact, just to give you an idea of where those travelers returned home to, there were outbreaks in Iceland, Mexico, and Australia that were all traced back to Colorado. So it could have been a big, huge deal if we hadn't closed the ski resorts. We endured a lot of pain because of that financial pain, but it was a good decision. Let's be honest and let's be clear. The 3 months of quarantine sucked. And honestly, wearing masks sucks. But what doesn't suck is consistently having such low positivity rates that Colorado is now one of about 9 or 10 states approved for travel to Costa Rica. In fact, it's my view that other countries will begin reopening their borders to US travelers based on their states' positivity rates versus the US as a whole. I appreciate the ongoing local response to COVID here in our states and feel like we're in pretty good hands. And I will say, given that we're surrounded by Utah, Kansas State, Texas, Arizona, and all of those states have really struggled with dealing with this situation, have much higher rates, much higher positivity rates. The fact that we're at the percentage that we're at is, in my view, quite shocking. I've just returned from my fourth local staycation since COVID, and one of the best, and I mean the best, changes as a result of this mess is how main streets have been closed down to traffic, especially mountain main streets. I've visited Breckenridge, Frisco, and Salida. I know Salida is not technically in the mountains, but I'm just gonna squeeze it into this comment. And it was like I was experiencing the towns in a completely new way because I was. I no longer had to rush through traffic, work my way through crowds, or hear cars honking all the time. In fact, I've spoken with several retailers in Breckenridge who've said that they've had their best summers ever. And I'm not surprised. In fact, the experience reminded me a lot of what it's like to be in Europe. We're lucky in Colorado, to be honest, because we have a very strong patio culture. So I think it was easier to get people to embrace what ultimately ended up being a very straightforward change. Hopefully, though, this will continue during upcoming summers. So clearly, the closed off main streets won't work during the winter, but May through September, I think, would be fantastic way to reimagine how our towns can be. I loved how Larimer Square was closed down, the west end of Pearl Street in Boulder. Like it changed the mood and vibe of those spaces, and I am here for it. I absolutely love this change, and I've spoken to a lot of retailers and just other citizens of the state who've also had this experience. And they're like, we love it. So hopefully you're out there listening. It is a very much loved change. Please consider doing this moving forward. Again, May through September, because obviously snow would make this hard to do. Expanded outdoor seating. I love how businesses have really rethought the spaces connected to their businesses. Let's be clear, they had to do it in order to survive, but the expanded seating has been a wonderful way to experience many of our favorite restaurants without the anxiety of eating inside. And a lot of the outbreaks that people have been reporting, like other health departments have been reporting, are related a lot of times to indoor facilities. So I'm not planning on really being indoor anywhere unless it's like my house. So having patios as a place to eat and expanded outdoor seating allows me to enjoy that facility without being so nervous about it. Alcohol to go. I actually don't drink that much. And in fact, I don't drink that much to the point where I don't really have alcohol in the house for me. I have it in case guests come over, but I don't really have a lot on hand. So I love that you can now pick up a cocktail to go. I think it's the best thing ever. And I hope that that stays. Please do not change that. Sometimes you make a meal and maybe you are not a cocktail connoisseur, or maybe you cocktail connoisseur, but you don't have all the ingredients to mix up your dream drinks. And you can go pick it up from your favorite restaurant. So I absolutely love that. Colorado's bipartisan voting setup. So this has been going on for years now, but I have never appreciated how good we have it in terms of voting until I began to hear all of the insane stories around the US connected to voting. Quite honestly, I appreciate the system of voting set up here in Colorado. I have a lot of faith in our system. I love that it's bipartisan and continues to be set up in that way. In fact, it's clear to me that Colorado's system of voting is the platinum standard in the US. I love it so much that I'm actually planning on doing a podcast episode about what it's like to vote here from beginning to end, because so many people have no idea how good voting could be. One of the things I don't want to change is all of the conversations that I've had with people that were new to me or are new to me. I'm one of those people who's never met a stranger, and I've had the wonderful experience of having conversations with Coloradans across the state about a lot of different things. It's been really fun hearing where they're coming from. It's been moving to learn what's going on with them personally, their struggles, their concerns, their fears. It's been a beautiful thing that I don't know would have happened without this much stress and trauma. So I love that I was able to have these in-depth conversations, which maybe before we wouldn't have had. So I love that, and I hope that continues to be the case moving forward. Right now, a number of businesses have undergone some really extreme pivots in order to stay relevant and continue bringing in customers. Here are some examples of new innovative approaches to business that I've discovered during this time. Business innovation right now is insane. Here's an example. So, Somebody People, a plant based restaurant in Platt Park, has done the following: they have outdoor seating, weekly produce boxes that require a subscription, so it's great for their bottom line. You can take home cocktails, you can take home food, take out, and you can also pick up fresh veggies. So they've expanded what their food concept and how their business serves people. And I love it. Also, the food quality is amazing. So definitely check out Somebody People. It's on South Broadway, just past the I-25 and Broadway light rail station. I love that coffee shops are offering coffee bean subscriptions and other opportunities to work with them. I have to admit, the way that farmers markets are managing the flow of customers into their events is much better in 2020. I will say that I regularly attend farmers markets, and last year I remember just thinking, this is insane because they were so busy. There were so many people. It just drove me crazy. So it was great to have this experience where there was plenty of space. People weren't all on me. There weren't dogs like licking on my legs. Like it was just a much better way to experience the farmers market without jostling one another and just really having enough time to browse. So I love the managed entry into those spaces. One of the most significant changes that I'm so excited to see is the continued support and publicity for people of color owned businesses here in the state. There are not a lot of us, so it's really helpful when people shout out the amazing products, goods, and services that people are providing. The National Bureau of Economic Research reported that 40%, 40 freaking percent of Black owned businesses shut down during COVID. Part of it is that a lot of businesses that Black and Brown folks were creating were really people focused, were hair salons, things like that. And so clearly, when we had to shut down because of COVID, that affected our ability to continue running these businesses. Having increased support and visibility for Colorado local businesses is a key part of their ability to make it through this financial storm. So I am so excited to see continued sustained support for these businesses. I feel like this was a trend that was already happening prior to this year, but it's really definitely accelerated in my mind. And an example of that actually is how Denver Startup Week decided that as a mandate that all panels across the board would be a reflection of the entrepreneurs in the state. There were significant efforts to make sure that women, people of color, all kinds of walks of life represented on all the panels that were presented during Denver Startup Week, which is an amazing thing. And furthermore, I love the continued support and publicity for all locally owned Colorado businesses. Square State has its mission as one of the components of its mission to support, uplift, and elevate Colorado local businesses, regardless of who is running them. And so, what I love about being in Colorado is just the continued support and understanding how important small businesses are to creating a thriving local economy. In my numerous conversations with local entrepreneurs, they've routinely pointed out that there is a healthy ecosystem in Colorado from the business development stage to the moment that it's time to sell your products, and also just in everything in between. Resources such as the Small Business Administration, Colorado Startups Podcast Connect, Denver Startup Week, Colorado Small Business Development Network, Women Who Startup, and more are part of the reason why businesses here are doing so well. What isn't working? So there are actually a number of things that aren't working, and so I did want to discuss that in next week's episode. I will actually link to it in this show. So if you, a couple weeks from now, you hear this episode, you'll also be able to access that show. I do plan on talking about some of the things that just aren't working that we do need to address. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Again, I want to share 9 changes that are working, or just 9 aspects of Colorado life that are working during COVID. So 1, support and publicity for all locally owned businesses, support and publicity for POC owned businesses, the business of innovation, all the incredible conversations that I'm having with amazing people, Colorado's bipartisan voting setup and system. Thank God for it. Alcohol to go. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. The expanded outdoor seating, having our main streets shut down and just expanded seating access to businesses in that way, and the initial swift response to COVID. So, thank you so much for listening to this show. If you have any other things that you're like, Michelle, you should have had this on your list, email me. Let me know at squareskateco@gmail.com.